Welcome to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast. I'm your host, Chris Spear. So here, we're going to talk about gear, grit, and the kind of stories you only get around a fire. It's all about learning, adapting, and keeping your faith strong. So whether you're a seasoned outdoorsman or just looking to unplug and reconnect, you're in the right place. So pull up a chair by the fire and let's get into it. All right. Welcome back to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast. And tonight, we are sitting down underneath the tarp. I can't, what the heck? I got a fire rolling in the front here. I got Ranger back here saying it's kind of chilly outside. So, bear with me here. It's been raining. Oh, excuse me. It's been raining all day. It's just been one of those days. This has been one of those weeks. But we made it through Thanksgiving. And I had a great Thanksgiving, had a great time with the family, all the people at the house, family, friends, extended family, stuff like that. Everything was great. How about you? Was everything good? Let me know. Send a comment down and let me know how things went for you guys. You know, I'm really interested to hear about other people's experiences as well as mine. It was pretty cool. We had a good time. Then a couple of days later, it was the grandbaby's first birthday. We went to his house and, you know, watched a 1-year-old walking around and not really understanding everything that's happening, but enjoying every minute of it. So it was great times. And we had a good week. So, you know, welcome back. And a couple of weeks ago, Dave and I went on a little camping trip. And we got a little wildlife management area out here. And we went out there, just drove up, unloaded the trucks. He brought his truck, I brought mine, and we just did a real quick overnight trip. Just get out into the woods and get away from the hustle and bustle of life. So we get out there, drive the truck up, and we get out, we unload. He sets up his little tent, and he has a cot, and he set up the nightcat lay flat hammock, and he put that hammock on his cot and he sets it up. It is its own system. It is completely standalone. The lay flat hammock works perfect on a cot, and I believe Nightcat actually sells the systems like that with the cot as well. And I was using the Helinox. I had a cot, and I was just sleeping underneath a plow point shelter on this ultralight Helinox cot. Helinox. And I rolled out my heavy duty military original issue green down sleeping bag. I hardly ever, if I take this sleeping bag anywhere, it's because I drove up to where I'm camping or I took a boat to where I'm going or something like that. I hardly ever use this sleeping bag. I mean, I use it, but I usually don't bring it with me on many trips, especially a hiking trip. That ain't gonna happen. So I get out there and I get everything set up, and it was supposed to drop. The temperature was supposed to drop, and it got down in the 20s that night. It was like 26. It was the first cold snap. And so you could watch this video on my Spear Outdoors channel, and it was a pretty cool little video. Got out there, went camping, cooked dinner, got up, watched some deer. You know, the next morning when we woke up, there was some deer chasing. There was a buck chasing a bunch of does on the sandbar across the way from us. So, you know, we just had a good time. It was real quick. We got out there. We got a bunch of firewood, loaded the back of the truck up with firewood, dug us a little pit for the fire, and then lit our fire and just enjoyed sitting around talking and having a good time and just enjoying each other's company. That's what camping's all about. So there was something that this taught me, though. That night, it taught me something that I already knew, but I I don't want to say I ignored it, but I knew this to be true, yet I still just didn't pay attention to it. I guess ignored it. And by the end of this episode, you'll know that the physical lesson that the woods gave me is like, it's the same thing that I talk about in the book. On page 71 right here, I'm going to read a little excerpt. It says, for additional bedding, there is no substitute for a wool blanket. A genuine 100% wool blanket will keep you warm on cold and wet nights. A sleeping bag made from quality natural feather down or synthetic material can also be useful. But the climate you're camping in should always determine the type of bag that you select. A natural down bag, for example, is extremely difficult to dry once it gets wet. Synthetic material is easier to dry if it becomes damp, but it doesn't keep you as warm as natural feather down. There are, however, incredibly lightweight down stuffed blankets that are 100% waterproof on the market. And I have been using one for a few years in conjunction with my wool blanket and have stayed very warm in a hammock when the temperature was in the low to mid 30s. So if you're looking for extra comfort while camping, lightweight hiking, or camping chairs, that's the next section. But anyway, these blankets that I was talking about, I brought a puffy blanket with me. I brought my wool blanket with me, and I brought my sleeping bag with me. I knew it was going to be 26 degrees, and I didn't think it was going to be an issue. And buddy, so Dave and I set up camp, and it was a bluff overlooking the river, the Pearl River. And we finally got the fire to start rolling. We're sitting there, and it was right about sunset. We're watching the river just roll down through there. And I got a couple pictures of it. It was pretty cool. The video is pretty cool. And the cold was starting to set in as soon as the light started fading. And we cooked some dinner, and we ate, and we just sat around for a little while. And before you know it, it's weird how when you go camping, by the time you get all your activities done, like setting up your shelter, setting up all this stuff, and then you get your dinner cooked, and you sit around, and you're just staring into the campfire, and you're talking. It's weird because time flies by so fast, don't it? It gets dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock here this time of year. And before you know it, it's 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock. These dogs keep getting underneath this table. Go. So we get down, we get everything set up. We eat our dinner. We sit around, we talk for a little while, and then finally it's like, hey, man, it's time for go to bed. So I go off to my corner. He goes off to his tent. And we had some nice big logs. We threw some big logs on the fire so it would burn longer, and I'd fall asleep. And then it started getting cold. It started getting real cold. And I stretch out on this mummy bag. And I'm having a problem with the mummy bags because I have claustrophobia, I guess, dealing with the military all them years. It's getting worse and worse. I mean, worse and worse. But I start feeling like I can't breathe. And so I open it up and I try to get out, and then I freeze to death, and I shut it and I freeze to death. And man, that night was ridiculous. That whole night. So by midnight that night, I was like shifting around. And by 2 o'clock in the morning, I was freezing. And I believe David was actually making coffee at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I got up, I stoked the fire. I added some more logs to the fire. Me and David were sitting there talking for a little while, about 3 in the morning. And then I threw another big log on the fire, and I just moved my cot closer to the fire. And I tried to go to sleep that way. And I'd roll over with my back to the fire, and, it was miserable. But here's the thing. The sleeping bag wasn't broken. It was, the design wasn't flawed. It was me. And I ignored the basics, and the woods don't ignore mistakes. I ignored the basics, and it happens to seasoned people. They go out all the time. I ignored the basics. I was up off the ground, and it zapped me. It sucked out all. So when you're laying in a sleeping bag, and this sleeping bag is rated for -40, all right. When you lay down, you are compressing the fibers, and the fibers, you ever notice how you get colder on your back, and your backside is a little bit colder than the rest of your body? You can be all warm and fuzzy on the top, in a sleeping bag, but the backside is extremely freezing. It's because you're compressing the fibers on the sleeping bag, and it's not holding the heat in like it normally should. And that typically happens all the time with these things. So here's something most folks don't factor in when they hear that these sleeping bags are extremely cold weather sleeping bags. The rating on the tag is not going to save you. You're going to save you. And if the rest of the sleep system isn't doing its job, the best bag in the world is not going to keep you warm. And I learned this, and I knew this. I know this, and I wrote about it, and I've done my research, and I know these things. And on the ground or on a cot, heat loss always goes down first. It doesn't matter if the bag is rated far below zero. If cold air or cold metal sits underneath without insulation, it will drain you all night long. It will slowly drain the heat out of you. And that's what I ignored. And let's see if I can find it here in the book. Where did I talk about it? That when you get out into the woods and there is no insulation between you and whatever it is you're laying on, it is convective cooling. And what happens is it is just like it just sucks and pulls all the heat out of you. And I remember talking about it somewhere in here. I think it was in the hammock section, where we're talking about the convective cooling, and that's why you use a blanket, not a wool blanket. You can use a wool blanket to lay on. That will help some, but it is a underquilt for a hammock, and that keeps you warm and onto your backside. Now, I could have done the same thing with this. I get out there, and I did not put a pad down, or I didn't stuff a bunch of stuff up underneath the cot. And that would have really, like, if I'd have put some leaves or something underneath there, or stuffed all my extra bedding or whatever up underneath there, it would have kept me from freezing on my backside. And this is something that's happened ever since the beginning of history. So I should have used like a closed cell foam pad or an air mattress or an air pad. I should have layered my East Hills Outdoor puffy blanket underneath me. I could have laid the wool blanket down underneath me, and I could have just added a couple layers there, and it would have really helped. But I trusted the bag on this little cot, and I thought, it ain't going to be too bad. It's only 3 or 4 inches up off the ground. And dude, it brutally tortured me. It destroyed me. It ruined my entire evening, my camp out. So here's what that night drove home. Here are the lessons that I learned that night. That a sleep system is a system. One piece doesn't do the whole job. You need insulation. You need it above and you need it below. If you're using a cot in the wintertime, you have to have something to block the heat, retain the heat, keep the heat in. You have to have something with some kind of R value to lay on, like a foam pad or something of the sort. A cot is not insulation, and it keeps you up off the ground, and it's more comfortable to sleep on than the ground most times. But the air moving back and forth underneath it is going to rob all your heat. It's going to take all your heat out. It's just going to like suck it out, zap it. Now, you've heard me talk about wool blankets on here a lot. And we've talked about them, you know, a wool blanket. If that's all you have, a wool blanket will keep you alive. They've been used for thousands of years, and they are natural, 100% natural material that is going to keep you warm. And I cannot reiterate this enough that a wool blanket belongs in modern camping gear. It really does. I mean, it's relatively heavy, and the one that I use the most is a military green 80% wool. Now, 100% wool is a little bit better. It is going to keep you a little bit warmer, but 80% wool, the blankets that you get from the military GI issued wool blankets are going to be your 80% wool blankets. It's going to be 80% wool. And 20%, I think, is either spandex or something else, some other material. I'll have to look into that, post it. But a wool blanket still belongs into a modern camping setup. It really does. And I use a wool blanket more often than not. Now, I use a wool blanket, and I actually have 2 of them. And even when I go hammock camping, I have gone camping in 30-degree weather, just like I mentioned in the book, with nothing more than 2 wool blankets, and I was good to go. And I had the underquilt on that hammock, but a wool blanket is going to keep you warm. And a wool blanket is going to fill the gaps that synthetic insulation can't. And I don't know how to really explain that other than it's the truth. It really is. A wool blanket is going to keep you warmer on cold days and cooler on hot days. It's just, and if it's soaking wet, it's still going to keep you warm. You're going to be wet, but you're still going to be warm. So a down puffy blanket, I have one of those. It's an East Hills Outdoors, and it is stuffed with all kinds of little feathers. And this thing is great. It's a waterproof down puffy blanket. It kind of looks like a sleeping bag opened all the way up, and it's got a couple buttons on the side to where you can fold it in half, and you know, but it's not a sleeping bag. It's not a sleeping bag. It's just a blanket. It's a puffy blanket, and it does a good job keeping you warm. Now, I like to use that as my base layer and then cover up with my wool blanket. And I usually turn myself into a burrito. Like, I will take
that puffy down blanket and lay it down, and then I'll open up my wool blanket on top of it, and I'll lay down and I'll cover it up like a sleeping bag. And you talk about toasty, that will keep you toasty right there. That will keep you good and warm. And I did that several weeks ago when I took out the Truth and Nature boys camping, and I camped on a cot that night too. And it was still kind of chilly, you know. But I'm finding that the older I get, the less I can handle the cold. I don't know, 51 years old, and the older I get, the colder it is, and I hate cold. But you don't want to assume because the bag keeps people warm on these TV shows, or like in Alaska or something like that, it'll keep you warm in poorly insulated cot in South Mississippi. Because if you're laying on a cot in, let's say, South Mississippi, it doesn't get as cold here as it does in other parts of the country. It just don't do it. And if you are laying here on a cot and it's 26 degrees and the wind's constantly blowing, you're going to be cold. I don't give a flying flip if what somebody's going to say. You're going to get cold. It's going to get cold. So cold exposes things. When you get cold at night, you start reevaluating your gear. You start reevaluating what you did wrong. You start reevaluating all the mistakes. You start thinking about your layers. You start really contemplating, what did I wear? You start remembering things. So cold is a teacher, and it will teach you things, and you will reflect on them. The cold is not going to lie. It is going to say, hey, you're cold. And you're going to say, hey, I'm cold. And you're going to start reflecting and thinking. And it's just going to tell the truth. It's going to tell the truth. It's going to tell the truth slower than fire does. Fire. Yeah, fire is going to tell the truth. Starting a fire is going to tell the truth whether you practiced or not. But the coal is going to tell you the truth is whether you was ready to be outside in the great outdoors. So this is the part here that really had me start thinking that me being in the great outdoors, I walked out thinking, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've done this a million times. I've been camping. I'm just going camping. I'm going for an overnight camping trip. And I got humbled because I went on an overnight camping trip. I didn't think about what I needed to think about. Yeah, I could have got up, got my truck, cranked it up, turned the heater on. But that, I don't know. I'm not that prideful to go do that. I will rather sit there and reflect and fix the problem than try to take a shortcut out of it. So this whole situation started sounding a lot like something that I read in the Bible a while back about preparation. And it's not the dramatic kind. It's relatively a small kind, and it's overlooked details that make all the difference. And this was a situation of overlooked details. I knew better. And I knew it was going to 26 degrees that night, but I did not bring the appropriate pad to lay on. And cold weather, I took an extreme cold weather, and I was like, yeah, this thing's rated for the cold weather. Let's just go ahead and do that. But that was me. I saw the cold front. I knew the cot had no insulation. I knew better. It was my fault, but I kept going anyway. So Proverbs 27:12 says, a prudent man sees trouble coming and takes refuge. But the simple keep going and suffer for it. Talk about put you in your place. That right there is a Bible verse that will hit home with you. That, like I said just a minute ago, that was me. That was me. I saw the trouble coming, but I didn't take refuge in it. I was the simple man. I just kept on going and I suffered for it. I didn't think it through. I knew better, but I just kept going anyway. I suffered. I wasn't in danger. I didn't panic, anything like that. There was nothing that seemed on the outside that I did wrong. All I did was throw a sleeping bag in a truck and head out camping for an overnight trip, and I knew it was going to be 26 degrees. But I assumed that because it said extreme cold weather on this sleeping bag, and I've used it countless times, I did not take into account the fact that I would be sleeping 3 to 4 inches up off the ground and had that cooling happen up underneath there and just getting zapped. So the cold was just kind of like that quiet cold. It crawled all night long, and it reminded me of every single mistake that I made that night. And it was like, man, I should have brought this. I should have brought that. I could have brought this, and I stayed, and from now on, if I'm sleeping on a cot, I am bringing a pad to put down between me and the ground. I don't care if it's in the middle of the summertime or not. Which in summertime I'd be in a hammock anyway. So there's the deeper lesson. God has told us the same thing from the beginning of time. Pay attention. Prepare wisely. Understand or notice what is coming. Don't assume tomorrow will be soft because today is easy. When you get out into the woods, you prepare for the cold that you expect and the cold you don't. So for my situation, I expected it to be 26 degrees, but I didn't expect to, quote unquote, freeze to death. And I was out there under a cot. Anytime in our lives, we have to prepare for the storms. The ones that we see, the ones that we don't. Wisdom, outdoor wisdom, biblical wisdom, life wisdom, marriage wisdom, parenting wisdom, all these different, you plug in blank, plug it, fill in your blank. It's not dramatic. All it is simple discipline. And the reason why it is called wisdom is because you live through it and you built upon it and you understand it. You've been there, you've done that. Cold weather is going to teach you quicker than a sermon ever will. Cold weather is going to teach you quicker than any podcast ever will. Cold weather is going to teach you quicker than any YouTube video ever will. So when I think about that right now, that night, I'm like, man, from now on, I am going to have some kind of something to put down. It was a tiny mistake, and it can happen to anybody at any time. Now, let's say I was somewhere where it got -30 that night. That's brutal. Would you survive it? Who knows? But one missing pad, one little bad assumption, one little, how bad can it be? It had a huge consequence. It could have been even worse, That's how a lot of our lives work, is not the big disasters, it's the small oversights. The things we say. Oh, it'll be fine. It's going to be okay. And then it's not. Man, we do that all the time. All of us do it. And I don't care who you are listening to this. Every single one of us do that. But the great outdoors are going to be honest to you. The great outdoors are always going to tell the truth. The great outdoors is going to tell you when you don't prepare. And a lot of times, when you head outside on a camping trip, you get way out there in the woods by yourself, and it can humble you quickly. But anyway, so yeah, that was it. That was an overnight trip. Went with Dave, and man, I'm telling you right now, it was good times. It was great times. We got up the next morning. We watched a deer chase a bunch of does on the opposite sandbar from the river for about an hour. And I'm thinking I might put that video at the beginning and end of this podcast on the podcast video. And I just say we had a good time. We had some breakfast. We got up. We ate the breakfast, the primitive camping and bushcraft freeze-dried breakfast meals, the rations. If you haven't tried those, go ahead and head over to primitive-camping.com. Jody has been using some he did the shepherd pie in the group on Facebook. And he's been posting some photos in there, and it's good stuff. And he tried it out, and he's like, man, this is good stuff. So yeah, head on over there. And I tell you what, today is Cyber Monday or something like that. I am going to put on the website, I'm going to put everything on the website on sale today. So everything on primitive-camping.com is going to go on sale. All the meals are going to go on sale, all the books, all the fire plugs, all the fire kits, everything. So if you're looking for something for somebody for Christmas, head on over. And if you're not buying some of those stuff off of there and you want to buy something like a lantern or something like that, head over to my links and my affiliate links on Amazon and get you something from there. It's all good. If not, I appreciate your support for listening anyway. All right, that's where we're going to end this today. If this episode gave you something to think about and it kind of reminded you of a frozen night because you skipped one small detail, then go ahead and share this with somebody else. And head on over to primitive-camping.com. Pick you up a copy of the book, get you some of the meals, and listen to some of the past episodes here on the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast. And until next time, I'll still be here. Get ready for the Fundamental Fridays video, and we'll start doing that sometime this week. But anyway, all right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. I'll see you in the next video or the next podcast.
Thanks for sitting around the fire with me today. If this episode gave you something to think about, if it helped you feel a little bit more prepared, or it even stirred your faith a tiny bit, go ahead and share it with someone else who might need it as well. We don't go camping to run away from life. We come out here to slow down and to recharge. So grab another log, throw it on the fire, and remember this: in all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. I'll see you next time. God bless you.